Welcome to The Real Deal with me, Larry, Lawton, and Benz.
What's up?
We have a great guest today. We have State Representative from District 53 right here in Central Florida, Randy Fine. Welcome to the show, Randy.
Thanks for having me.
We got on the couch our perennial Frank Filiberto, former mayor, doctor, ENT surgeon, plastic surgeon, and #1 pot doctor in the state. So we're going to have a great show today, Randy. You know, we're going to talk about a bunch of issues. I really wanted to get you on to ask, because I'm a fiscal responsible person. That's my thing. But we're going to talk about a whole bunch of things. I think we're going to have a lot of fun today.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, before I get started, everybody check us out on all the programs. We got the Crooked Diamond. We got the cruise, the giveaway cruise. I gave a cruise away, everybody. And the guy was, what was his name? Paul Latta. Paul Latta from Atlanta won the cruise. So him and his girl or wife are coming down November 18th. And we're going on a weekend cruise with the fans and stuff.
On that same note, we just a quick reminder: if you signed up to go on the cruise and you haven't emailed me your confirmation and your shirt size, please do that as soon as possible. It's going to be too late if you don't get it to us by November 3rd?
Yep, by the start of the month, really.
Right, yeah. So little. You have very little time left.
Yeah.
So November 3rd is the deadline, but get it to us sooner. Get us your T-shirt size, your confirmation, and we'll get you that shirt.
Because we're going to be making a group T-shirts. We have a great cruise. We're going to meet fans. We're going to have a whole bunch of stuff, the dinners. It's going to be a great cruise. We're going to have a great cruise on it.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. You know, it's crazy because I'm going on a cruise myself next Wednesday to the 6th. I'm going on Virgin Voyages out of Miami. And then I'm going on this cruise, the 18th. Not that I like cruising, but not that much. But this happened to, hit what we did. We do a lot of stuff here with the show and the cigar. I don't know if you know this. We also launched the cigar. I partnered with the third largest company in the world, Oliva Cigar. Mm-hmm. So I deal with their CEO all the time. He was up here on the show. And, of course, Jose Oliva, who was I think he was Speaker of the House, wasn't he?
He was. He was the Speaker of the House in my second 2 years. So I've been in the legislature for 6 years, and he was the Speaker for the second 2. So
yeah.
Years 3 and 4 for me.
He still holds an office down there in Oliva. They sold the company. Mm-hmm. You knew all that. And they sold the company to a Belgian company, but he still has an office down there. And I go down there pretty often down in Miami.
Well, you'll never have a difficult time smoking a cigar with him. So.
No, we had, I love their lounge. I don't know if you ever been down there.
I have. I never met with Speaker Oliva in his office down there. I mean, I always in his legislative office. I always met with him at the
cigar place in that private lounge there. Yeah. So, that's where
I love that place.
We love that place.
So, yeah, he's a great guy and was a great conservative leader and taught me a lot during the 2 years I served with him.
It's funny, Randy, because what we did was. When I partnered with them, they wanted me, for my platform, and we did. And I ended up picking the leaf and picking it and doing everything. So we have our own brand, the Crooked Diamond,
nice.
And it's pretty good. I mean, we launched. We had what they call pre-launch, and Benz is running it, and we're partners on that. All these guys, we all smoke cigars, so it's kind of I've been smoking cigars for 40 years, so it's kind of a good fit. I mean, for me and my brand, if you want to call it that.
Have you ever had a cigar, Randy?
I don't that often. I do enough things that are bad. My general vice is that I eat too much.
Okay.
Join the club.
I sort of check it off at that. But no, I've never been a smoker.
Okay.
I got, just to let you, I mean, people have been asking me this, and this. I lost. I was 258 when I started. About 5 months ago, Frank, I think it was about that. Right. I just got on a scale this morning, 213. Even asking eating all Frank's hot dogs at his card game, because we have those. Sabret hot dogs, the best, the New York hot dogs.
So what was your trick? What'd you do?
I do the intermittent fasting, where you go off for 16. As a matter of fact, Ben's lost, how much did you lose?
74 pounds.
74 pounds. So we're on this thing. It's not like, the reason I like this one, Randy, is because I could actually eat what I want when you're off it. Like when you have your thing, eat your pizza. You can't tell me not to eat pizza. I mean, it's just not going to work. I don't give a fuck what diet we're on.
All it is eat what you want for 8 hours. Don't eat for 16.
No, not eat all you want and go to gorge. Right. I mean, you don't. You find out you don't wanna. But what I've learned about it and reading a lot about it and researching it is when you're on the fast itself. When you're fasting, your body actually performs better. You think clearer because your body is using the fat that's already processed in you, so all the shit's out of it. So you're getting the best kind of energy. And I find out I got even more energy when I start eating it. Then you feel lethargic and typical shit where you sit on the couch and and do nothing. You know, that's
Interesting.
So I found that works for me. And Ben's, I watched him. I'm watching him. He's young, and I'm a little older. So how old are you? 30.
37. I just turned 37.
Yeah,
Holy
that's
shit.
right. He had 37, and so he, and I watched him losing weight. And everyone was saying, "Well, how'd you do it?" And he was telling us that then you start, it takes enough to push yourself. So I and that's happened to me. Two things I want to get with you, Randy, and we're gonna jump right into a few things. Congratulations, you support the zoo in a big way.
I have, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I do. I know that, and I love the zoo. I think it's a great attraction to Brevard County.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk big attractions to bring people from outside the county, that's probably the one. That and the Space Center, of course, are the probably two biggest tourist things that we can use. And that zoo's a good zoo. Mm-hmm. We support it. We know some people on the boards and stuff, and we always go up there. And what a zoo! And I don't know how you got involved in it. How did you get involved?
Well, I know the CEO. We've been patrons of the zoo and done a number of things, and they just came to me and asked me to help as they move on to their next initiative, which is they want to build an aquarium up by Port Canaveral. And it's important to me because actually the number one tourist driver in Brevard County is the Indian River Lagoon. And,
oh, really?
yeah,
okay.
And it,
You can't whisper, Frank.
You can't whisper. You're going to talk though.
I'm sorry.
and it's in bad shape. And this aquarium that they want to build, I think, will continue to draw attraction to it. So they asked me for my help, and I was happy to give it. And I think it is a great tool. The tourism aspect is fine, but I think it's really of value to families in Brevard County. And it gives people something to do that's close. Particularly in things like the summer, it's got camps, and it's worked with Boy Scouts, and it's a great local institution that helps our families and our community, and so I've been very proud to help it.
Obviously, I read a lot about the Indian River Lagoon, the golf outings and stuff. Where are we making the mistakes then? Is it directing our funds? Is it we're not doing enough research on the manatees? And I know this is going to sound bad. And I know people are going to look at me and say, oh, fucking Larry doesn't. I love animals. But I think we got too many fucking manatees that are eating the grass underneath. There has to be some kind of balance. You got the animal rights people who want to, make it all about the manatees. How can you make it all about the manatees? Then you're going to kill the lagoon. So where you're at?
Well, the fundamental problem in the lagoon is that you have this algae that's brown that grows. And why does that algae grow? It grows because it's fed by nitrogen and phosphorus, which is not poison. It's just a regular chemical, but it feeds these algae, makes them grow. And where does that nitrogen and phosphorus come from? Well, frankly, it comes from all of us. And the number one source of pollution into the Indian River Lagoon is actually septic tanks. So a septic tank is designed when you use it to kind of get the really gross stuff out, but it releases the nitrogen and phosphorus. Septic tanks have holes in them. They're not tanks. They release out. You'll have a drain field with a septic tank. And typically, the reason your grass is pretty green on the drain field is because the grass is eating up the nitrogen and phosphorus. The problem that we have in Brevard County is we have septic tanks that are so close to water sources that the nitrogen and phosphorus does not get eaten up prior to it going into the water. And so you've got more and more and more nitrogen and phosphorus, which leads to more and more algae. And that algae then makes the water cloudy, which makes it hard for seagrass to grow and other things. That is the fundamental problem, is too much nitrogen and phosphorus. And it fundamentally comes from septic tanks. There are other sources as well, don't get me wrong. A really notable one is government, local politicians who dump sewage into the lagoon. And that is a problem at times. But I think the largest contributor is actually septic tanks. And it's something people don't want to deal with because typically when there's a pollution problem, people want to believe there's some bad guy hiding behind a tree with a barrel and he dumps it into the water and pollutes the water. They don't want to accept the fact that the reason the Indian River Lagoon is in the condition it's in is because of all of us. It's all of our faults. And people want to blame someone else. And so until we're willing to really tackle that problem, we're never going to be able to fundamentally fix it. We're working on it. It's getting better, but it's got a long way to go.
Representative Fine?
Yeah.
Right? Just one second along that lines. I think you submitted a bill 9193 for algae funding, and it was rejected by the legislature.
So by the way, I can't remember the bill numbers of my bills. I can't remember what I ate for breakfast a couple hours ago, but I have gotten a lot of funding for the lagoon. I did run a bill, if I think it's what you're asking for, that would bring research money to Brevard County to study the impact of a potential new inlet being cut into the lagoon. That has been funded. And if you look on the internet, a lot of times it says project bills die. The reason is they get incorporated into the budget. It's kind of an inside the beltway thing. All of those projects show has failed, even the ones that show up in the budget. But we have gotten money for FIT to study whether we should cut another lagoon, an inlet in the lagoon. Some people believe, well, look, if the water's bad, flush it out, right? And that makes a lot of sense, but there is research on the other side that says when you cut another inlet, the water that's coming in is salt water. Right, the lagoon is something called an estuary. It's a combination of salt.
It's brackish.
It's brackish. And there's a view that the saltier the water, the algae like salt water. And so it actually, the water will be cleaner, but it will actually make it worse because it'll be saltier. And so they're studying the issue as to whether we should have another inlet or not. But what I do know is this: we shouldn't be dumping sewage in the lagoon. And it's why I focused on it so much, because it's very hard for government to ask regular people to change how they live when every time it rains, they dump sewage in the lagoon. You know, the storm we just had, I haven't gotten the final number, but in the first few days, the politicians on the Brevard County Commission ordered the release of 7.2 million gallons of sewage into the lagoon. I mean, these politicians sit up there and they're like, well, it's raining, let's dump some sewage. And that creates not only problems, but it also eliminates the moral high ground for the government to say, hey, little people, you fix the problem, but we're not willing to do it ourselves. Classic liberal issue, do what I say, not as I do. And so I've been very focused on raw sewage releases because I think the government needs to solve its problem before it asks regular people to do it.
I was going to say the same thing, because how do you ask a person who lives and buys a house on the river or close to the river, at what point? You know, there's going to be a point where we, the people, have to trust the government that they told us the right thing. How many feet away and what properties have to get redone on that. At this point, I don't trust them. Sure. I mean, we have right now in the county commission, and you know, you did something I really was happy about. And I don't get into the politics, more into the fiscal responsibility. The Brevard County Commission asked for $30 million from you with the state, and they just gave a company a $30 million break. This is going to be blunt language. What the fuck is that?
Well, it's actually worse. They weren't asking for $30 million. They were asking for two $450,000 projects. They were asking for less than $1 million.
Okay.
So they were asking for a relatively small amount in the grand scheme of things from the legislature, because they said we're broke. We need cash. We need the state to help us fix the Indian River Lagoon. But at the same time, those politicians said, we're broke, state, give us some money. At the same time, they were giving $30 million to a private developer to build a hotel. And what I told them, I said, look, I cannot go to my colleagues in Tallahassee with a straight face and say my county is broke and it needs the help of the state to solve this problem, when they're turning around and giving $30 million to a private developer to build a hotel. And what's remarkable about that situation is usually in these political fights, Republicans look at, conservatives feel one way, liberals feel another. Everyone's fighting. There was literally no one who supported this $30 million giveaway, whether they were liberal or conservative. Everyone opposed it. Everyone, except for this Miami company and their paid lobbyists and these three politicians, you know, who for whatever reason, interestingly,
I like that way you said, because I know what I'm going to say.
One of their spouses would not answer the question of whether they were on the payroll for this company. I mean, that's the level of corruption that we find here. And so, for whatever reason, you know, these three politicians working with lobbyists who, by the way, lied about the fact that they were lobbying. One of them got in trouble for that. Gave $30 million away. And I said, look, I'm a straight shooter. I cannot ask the state to give you $900,000 to backfill the $30 million you just gave away. Sorry. And so I killed it.
I loved it. And you know, that's the stuff that I like, sticking up for, against your own party. Yeah. I mean, you know, this is a Republican control. I think everybody on the whole county commission is a Republican.
Theoretically.
Yeah, yeah, whatever, Rhino. But I understand that. Now I'm going to jump a little bit to local politics for you.
No problem.
Okay, we live in Palm Bay. My parents have been here since 1984. They were the first house on this block.
Nice.
I'm here, Randy, because I take care of my mom. She's 90. She's going to be 90, and I take care of her. And now my friends, and we do a lot here. It boggles my mind in Palm Bay, and I got the former mayor here, so he might want to chime in. Why Melbourne has two downtowns, doing great, thriving. If I asked you right now, Randy, let's go have a drink downtown Palm Bay, where would you go?
Sure.
Don't go anywhere.
There is no town.
There's no town. At what point? Now, I remember back when I first got out, and our partner and I, we thought the Palm Bay road down east near Rooney's and stuff like that was going to be a downtown, so we bought a building and all. Obviously, they don't even know where. I don't know if they don't know what foot goes in front of the other here in Palm Bay. And listen, there's one county, and Pete Filiberto, kid is. I sit and talk to him. He's the most prepared dude I've ever met in politics.
Pete's great.
Really,
you should be very proud of him.
You should. And I'm not just saying that because he knows that. The guy's prepared. And he knows I come up with it because I ask him. There's two things that I think this county really messed up. And I mean Palm Bay. And he tried to fix it. They should have had a bridge going from either Malabar Road or Port Malabar over there. Should have had that. All these people in the south of this whole county, in your district, to go to the beach, you got to drive 7-8 miles, cross 7-8, go down wherever you're going to be. You're driving for a lot. And you're not talking about a high income, high people, go wherever. Why couldn't there have been a bridge? I know he tried to get one many, many years ago. And a downtown. I said to Pete, and I'll say it to you right on the air. They talked about downtown all along US 1 or whatever. I said, you know what you should do? You should authorize or let it go, whatever your building committee, because that's the big problem. I don't give a fuck if a developer wanted to put a 50-story building in there. You want to be put on a map, put a building. South Florida, I lived in South Florida. They had the Pier 66. They had the, rotating bar. They could do stuff to make this county or the city even on the map. They got the room. They got the people. It's big enough. It's a medium-sized city. You got people like you who will support, I know, good stuff that are going to bring economics into this thing. What do you think is holding them back?
Well, I think you've got a culture of corruption in the city. I think the majority of the council is fundamentally corrupt. And let me just give you a few examples. You have a city councilman who's running for re-election right now, who was named in an arrest warrant for taking a bribe. You had a developer who wanted
about
to change.
Who's that? Which one? I mean, tell me. Tell me. I want to hear a name.
Yeah, so there's a developer. His name's Brian West, and he was arrested for bribery. One councilman at the time, who's no longer on the council, was a cooperating witness, and so they got the guy on tape apparently doing it. But he was also found. They were also named that he gave a $10,000 payment to a current city councilman, Kenny Johnson, who's running for re-election. And
wait, stop me for 1 second. Yeah. You're a businessman. I'm a business. 10 grand. I could buy a vote for 10 grand.
I will tell you one of the things.
In Palm Bay, you can.
That's terrible. That is terrible.
One of the things that has shocked me about politics is with some of these folks, not only that they can be bought, but how cheaply they can be bought. Because you have to understand, many of these people get into these jobs. They have no income, they have no jobs, they have no money, and so and these jobs take a lot of time. So it creates the condition that they make questionable choices. One thing that makes me a little bit different is I'm retired. I was a successful businessman.
Matter of fact, to let my audience know, you were a former CEO of a casino in Detroit.
Yep.
You also obviously graduate of Harvard. Congratulations. You got a pretty good school there. And you also ran a consulting company in Nevada. So congratulations.
Thank you. And I've been very lucky, and I worked very hard. And we can talk about it if you want. But the point is that I do not do this job for an income. And I think that by the way, being on the Palm Bay City Council, they hardly pay you anything. So if you don't have a job and you don't get an income from your time on the city council, well, some people make questionable decisions. And in the case of this case, took 10 grand. So I think
that's in the record. You're not just saying
sure.
that.
You can
Google that.
You can go and find the arrest warrant of Brian West. And you can read where one of the people who was tied up in that said to this councilman, "We already have Kenny Johnson in the bag," something like that. And they talked about paying $10,000. Look, why he hasn't been arrested for the bribery, I don't know. Maybe they're waiting to see if the developer, Mr. West, flips. I'm not sure. I don't know whether it's ongoing or not. But the fact of the matter is, you can read I think it's 27 pages, a 27-page arrest warrant.
Indictment.
No, it was an arrest warrant. He was
okay.
arrested, in which Kenny Johnson is named repeatedly for his involvement. And so when you have politicians who focus on their own pockets and not serving the people, this is how you end up. The biggest surprise to me in politics is I got into it because I assumed that people wanted to help other people. That was just what I assumed. I was not involved in politics prior to running. And
So this is your first ever venture into, and did you jump right into the state?
I did, and I can talk about that if you want.
Yeah, we will a little bit, but I want to get on this.
And I assumed that people ran because they were angry about the world. They were mad. They were worried about their children. They wanted to do the right thing. That's why I ran. And then I learned that particularly at the local level, it's not true. Most of the people who run for themselves.
And run for money now.
We had a West Melbourne vice mayor who was arrested for embezzling from a nonprofit.
From the museum. I remember that. Tice. His name was John Tice.
Yep. We had a mayor of a city that shouldn't even exist here in Brevard County who was implicated in embezzling, I think, $100,000 by illegally hiring herself to work for herself. And it was $100,000. I mean, and so you've got you there, and I could go on and on and on and on about scam. There was another mayor, a mayor in Melbourne, made the city buy a piece of property from herself. A piece of property, by the way, that was not usable. You couldn't use it. It was, I think, landlocked. But she got the city to pay her for it for more than it was worth. I mean, I can go through example after example after example after example of politicians who run for themselves, not to help other people. And people can agree with me or not. I don't particularly care. But what people can't say is that I do this for myself.
Or money.
I'm one of the few people that I know of in elected office that being elected is worse than not being elected. My life would be a lot better if I was not elected. This job costs me money. And it doesn't make me money, and it comes at great personal sacrifice to my family. So, but a lot of these people, they have jobs they wouldn't have if they weren't elected.
Well, you know,
set aside things like the bribery scandal that Councilman Johnson was involved in.
We're going to get a little bit more into Palm Bay because I live here and I want to support my city in a lot of different ways. Sure, exactly. A couple other things, you know, I look at now: politics and people. I have in this station, my company and this, you know, the YouTube, everything we do, we have a no prejudice thing. What I heard would happen in Indian Atlantic when you did, and Benz happens to be a Jewish, and he actually is from Israel. I
have from
Israel, right? You're from?
I was born in Israel.
It's unbelievable, right?
It blew me the fuck away.
It should.
I know the situation from close, and I've known it for a long time. The whole idea. I won't get into the details. I'm sure the listeners probably don't know. These are little town things that are happening.
Little town, but you know how we are, right? We are. I support not doing that shit. I can't stand it. I come from New York City, Bronx and Brooklyn.
Sure.
Well, listen, we didn't give a frick what you were. If you lived in our area, you were good. If you didn't, you weren't. You know, I forget the liberal politics, but go ahead, Benz. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. First of all, I want to thank you for taking a stance against it.
Yeah,
I know that you're a fellow tribesman, and that gives you, but I know that you would have done it regardless.
Sure.
Just kind of following your platform a little bit, and especially doing a little research coming into this show today. So thank you very much for taking that stance. I know that there was. I can't believe that there's flack being thrown back at you.
Yeah,
I can't believe. You know what? Really,
I can't either.
It blew me away with that.
The Hill. People are dying on the Hill of protecting someone who espouses Nazi ideals. It is truly
unbelievable,
extraordinary, and breathtaking.
What I heard and read goes on this incident. You know, people ask me always what I think of certain incidents when I'm around out in town or anywhere. The words he was using, Jewlanic. Mm-hmm. What the?
He was calling him Mayor Jew Berkman because he made a bunch of Jewish comments at this guy, just for the listeners' sakes. This is the mayor of Indianapolis, a small town here, beachside by where we live, in Brevard County.
They got the worst police department.
This guy wins by a large majority of the votes in his town. I know because I'm close to his son. I know the family well. They're good people, by the way. So this guy has a problem with the city, takes it out on the mayor, says all these anti-Semitic comments to him. So the mayor, to own it, says, I am Mayor Jew Berkman. You know, like if you're going to call me that, I'll own it. This guy goes and says some ridiculous things that I don't even want to say on air, to be honest with you.
They offended me, and you know how I am. I don't go for that.
He's got a whole page on Facebook where he is just disgustingly anti-Semitic.
It's extraordinary stuff.
In today's world,
today we're in 2022, and listen, I grew up. I'm 61 years old, so I'm not a kid, and I remember back in the 70s and busing and everything, all that crap. you didn't see this kind of stuff, what I read. And it just blew me. We talked about this one time, and I said, man, how did they get away with that? Why isn't more people out against that? Well, and this guy ran for fucking council.
Yeah, I don't. Look, I think a lot of people, apparently, what I've been told is this guy, is somewhat dangerous, and he's got a friend who's somewhat violent. One of his closest friend is apparently been arrested for threatening a police officer with a gun, and he's probably going to go to jail. So people are literally afraid of being hurt. I think that's part of it.
That's my level.
And I think that, and then the flip side is look, I mean, I think the sad fact is the chairman of the Republican Party in Brevard County is an anti-Semite. I mean, there's no other explanation. But this wasn't.
Hey, listen, he says it like it is.
This wasn't his first incident. 2 years ago, when President Trump, who I supported, was running for re-election, he scheduled an outdoor rally for President Trump outside of a temple on Rosh Hashanah, one of the two holiest days of the year for Jews, and they were having the service outdoors because it was the peak of COVID and no one wanted to be inside. And people went to him and said, please move it. Why do you have to do it in front of a Jewish synagogue on Rosh Hashanah? And he said, he made some sort of flippant remark and did it anyway. So look, I mean, I say all the time, no party has a monopoly on anti-Semitism. The Democratic Party absolutely has a lot of it, and frankly, they're more senior, but unfortunately, we're seeing right here in Brevard County, the chairman of the Republican Party is a Jew hater. That fact is not in dispute at this point. And apparently, in something I only got involved in the issue because I don't live in Indiana. I only got involved in the issue after people came to me, after the Republican Party of Brevard County chose to embrace this guy and say, we will help you. And then they put him in marketing materials that included my name. So my name is being used to establish the credibility of this guy. I didn't know they were going to use my name. They didn't get permission to use my name. They just did it. And I was also bothered that they were using Governor DeSantis' name to provide credibility to this guy.
I want him to be the next president.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see.
But, we talk about that all the time.
But they did that to help this guy get elected. That's when I got involved, after the fact. But apparently, lots of people from Indiana went to the chairman of the Republican Party before he chose to support this guy and said, this is a bad guy. And by the way, if you know who some of those people are, I don't. I'd love to know so I could talk to them. But he was warned. People went to him and said, he's a bad guy. He's a racist. He's a bigot. He's dangerous.
You should see what he does in their little... They have these town hall meetings, and he'll go, and the shit he says to... I mean, he just says it out in the open.
He called the deputy mayor, Stu Glass, Jew Glass in his Jew castle.
Yep.
I mean,
I've read some of that stuff, and I think it's crazy. It's funny because during this whole thing, especially with what's his name is it's my brother. He's coming to take care of my mom.
The real deal, baby.
The real deal. It always goes like this. It blew me away, Randy, what you just said, because I didn't know this. That the Republican chairman of state of Brevard County supports the guy that's been calling this guy.
Did you read his Facebook post, Randy's post?
Which one? I don't run Facebook. I got you.
That's one post you should read.
I will.
You should.
Definitely. I saw the other thing that made me laugh, but I'm definitely gonna. Because listen, I don't get involved. When I get involved, I'm very adamant about a couple of things. Prison reform, we need it. And here's why. Most people say, what do you mean reform? When I tell people 95% of people getting out of prison anyway, who do you want living next to you? Do you want a guy who has hope? Do you want a guy who's says, okay, I changed my life, like me? I was in prison for a long time. You know my background. And we have a guy now who has hope. He's going to be a taxpayer. So you know Lieutenant Governor Jeff Cockamp.
Sure.
Jeff is a friend of mine. Jeff supported, when I did my program, Jeff, he actually started the Youth and Family Council of the state of Florida. And he said, Larry, this is the best program I've ever seen, and I've been in government a long time. He goes, and not only why, and he gave me this why. I knew the numbers of costs and everything. Again, fiscally responsible. He goes, no, you're missing another cost. I go, what do you mean? He goes, when we can help somebody, and I don't, listen, they have to want to help themselves. We've got to do a lot of things. When you get that guy to be on the right track, you not only are saving the cost of incarceration, saving all that kind of stuff, and you're also putting a member of society back into the system, back into paying rent, buying gas, buying groceries, doing all that. And as I said, and I was up in Congress, and I met from Louis Gohmert to Ted Poe to all. I was up in Congress, did the circuit, and they all wanted to see me. Jason Chaffetz at the time, and like they said, listen, the best part of it is it's less victims too. I mean, when you got a guy that has hope and he wants to make it, he's not going to get that despair and say fuck it and do something stupid. Listen, I've seen good people make bad choices, whether it's myself or whoever. I grew up in that environment. I don't make excuses. I was who I was, but people do change. I got out of prison at 46 years old. And so our platform here is where, one, we believe we don't accept hate. I mean, I have a Discord. You know what Discord is?
My son does. I don't. Yeah.
We have a big Discord. About 12,000.
About 11,000. Yeah.
These are rabid fans. You sick them after somebody if you want, but they're great people. And we have 2 rules on it. Tell them the rules.
You just can't be a bigot. That's one. What's the other one?
It's hate. It's you can't.
No hate. So usually we go by one rule, right? The second rule we just added it, but it's a joke. I'm not even going to bring it up.
Go ahead.
No.
Do it now. I want to know.
You want to know what it is? No porn. Because these guys keep posting porn.
Oh, do we? Fuck, I want to go on there. No, I'm kidding.
We say no, not safe for work. That's the NSFW. That's the term that we use. No NSFW, and please, no hate. And I'll tell you what, I won't ban you over porn because I can delete it and go on with my day. But if you say something racist, anti-Semitic, or any hate whatsoever,
we don't go for that.
You're getting booted.
It's just not necessary.
I mean, who's raising people? That's my thing. In that regard,
it is learned.
Absolutely.
And I mean, look, it's Governor DeSantis summarized it. At the debate with Charlie Crist, he said, "Look, the way we end discrimination is to stop discriminating." And I think that
pretty cut and dry.
I don't. Most of these people who do this sort of thing, I think, aren't happy with their lives. It's sort of like septic tanks. You want someone else to blame. They're not happy with their lives, and they want someone else to blame. So I'm going to blame the Jews, or I'm going to blame Hispanics, or I'm going to blame black people, or whatever it is. It's because I'm miserable, and it can't be my fault. It can't be that I made bad choices, or I didn't do good in school, or whatever. It's got to be someone else's fault. It's equivalent if I need to go on your intermittent fasting diet. I'm going to ask you about that, but it would be the equivalent of me saying it's McDonald's fault.
Right?
It's not mine. It's McDonald's fault.
And too much calories in the
that's
food.
That's right. It's McDonald's fault. Not that I eat McDonald's, but that's the example. And so that's what this all comes from. But what's crazy is the openness with which it's embraced. Now, to be fair, the state chairman of the Republican Party, Senator Joe Gruters, I mean, he slammed the guy absolutely. He said, "There's no place for this. This is absolutely outrageous, and he should go away." But what's crazy is, again, here in Brevard County, I think we have to accept the fact that we've got bigots and
it sounds like corruption too.
I don't. I mean, I don't think that we have corruption. This issue is not corruption. I
didn't say that.
I don't think there's any money in being chairman of the Republican
I didn't say
Party,
that.
But
I didn't say
we have corruption. But in this case, we've got open bigotry, and I've faced it. Look, I'm the only Jewish Republican member of the Florida legislature.
Wow.
There are other Jews. They're Democrats.
Wait a minute. In the state of Florida?
In the state of Florida, I'm the.
What it shocked me? It's a real fact because obviously New York. The Jews. Listen, I'm in South Florida. I used to live in South Florida all the time.
Well, there
Miami
are other Jews. They're just Democrats. I'm the only Jewish Republican member of the legislature, and so so I deal with a lot of it just because of what I do, and it doesn't bother me. It's funny. I think of a colleague who called me. He sent me a letter. You wouldn't believe this horrible hate mail I got. He sends me a picture of it. What do you think? And I called him back and I said, "This is like a Tuesday morning before lunch in our office." and so I deal with a lot of that. But what is so I have a pretty thick skin. But what bothers me is to see not only the embrace of this hate by the chairman of the Brevard Republican Party, but the strident justification for it. When I found out about this thing, I had a very simple ask. My ask was, okay, I'm gonna choose to believe you didn't know, which, by the way, apparently is untrue. I'm gonna choose to believe you didn't know that this guy was a bigot. You just stumbled into it. Destroy the materials with my name and his name. I didn't give you permission to use my name. I didn't know you were using my name, number one. And number two, you've put my name next to a bigot. Destroy them. No.
He said no?
They said no.
They just said no.
No.
I don't know.
By the way,
with politics, I don't know the legal part of it.
worse. I got my share of those materials because I'm on there. I'm entitled to them. I got my share. I disposed of them because that's where they ought to be, is in the garbage.
Should have did it publicly.
And I did do it publicly, and and they got angry. They're mad that I disposed of their what I call Ku Klux Klan cards. That is the level of embrace of the bigotry, and there's no other way to look at it that the chair of the Republican Party and maybe others is an unrepentant bigot. And I wish that wasn't the case. I don't like having a member of my own party be a Jew hater, but that's what it is, and people need to accept it. And what bothers me is how few people are troubled by it. You know, you would. By the way,
troubled by it. You know that.
You are. But the example that I use is imagine. So Nathan White is running for the. Imagine that a white person running for city council called a black person the N-word. Ooh. They would be lit on fire. And by the way, justifiably.
Oh, yeah, I'm all about it.
Justifiably
Right.
so.
Right.
They would be justifiably lit on fire.
Yeah, if you don't know that in 2022,
Absolutely.
right.
But you can call someone Jew Glass or Mayor Jew Berkman or Jew Lantic, and it's like,
And there's many more, by the way.
Yeah.
there are. I actually asked for the city of Indianapolis to give me every email that had the word Jew in it. Shouldn't come up that much in city
how many?
business, right? I have 317 pages.
Yeah.
370 pages.
317 pages. 317 pages. Wow. And that doesn't include the stuff you're talking about.
Yeah.
All the online, like that doesn't include Facebook posts where he basically accuses Indianapolis of being some sort of Jewish caliphate. It's the most unbelievable one. He says Dave Berkman, Stu Glass, somebody Kemp, and Paul Gugelman, who's the city attorney, are all Jewish. That explains why they want to change the town charter in the way that they are. This is 2022.
By the way,
There's a lot of anti-Semitism in the country, even today.
No, but listen, Central Florida is rampant. Let me tell you something. They also this happened during COVID, and it wasn't the first time apparently, because I have a
flyers?
group of friends with lunch. Larry and I would.
Flyers?
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, no, okay.
Unbelievable. And what about what they're hanging off over the overpasses?
Oh yeah,
You know what I'm talking about?
yeah.
No, they did. But here's what's interesting about that. So we had this issue over the last couple of years where these crazy flyers that say like COVID is the fault of the Jews.
I've seen those.
Get put on people's driveways.
Indianapolis is.
You want to know one of the cities where they got put on people's driveways? Indianapolis.
Right.
And by the way, it wouldn't surprise. I don't have any evidence, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was this guy who was out doing
me
it.
Either.
And so to have the
He sure does have a track record.
He's not hiding it. That's what we're saying.
He's not. He is. I've never in my life seen such open, unrepentant,
bigotry.
unapologetic. And you know what his excuse is? Because I'm not anti-Semitic. I just tell the truth about the Jews.
Oh yeah, isn't that what Kanye just said?
I just tell the truth.
That's what Hitler said.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And by the way, one of the many hundreds of things, he's taken a picture of Mayor Berkman and mocked him up to look like Hitler.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. And then you have the chairman of the Republican Party who we will do everything we can to get this Nazi elected. It's unbelievable. And what bothers me is there aren't more people that aren't speaking out about it. But what I'm told is in the city of Atlantic, people are literally afraid for their safety.
You know, listen, I come from a rough background. I don't know. That would never scare me into it. It'd make me go back to my way.
You know what? It might not scare me, but it scares me thinking that I have a 2 and a 5-year-old growing up in this county.
Right? I mean, with that, you do.
With somebody who's so open about it, to me, that's the biggest problem. I mean, we've always known that anti-Semitism has been around. It's always been something that we know was there, but as long as they're not talking about it, we're not talking about it. And us Jews are good about that. We don't like to use I'll call it a race card for lack of a better term, but we don't like to use it. Yeah. You know, we typically just sit by the sidelines, but when somebody comes out and becomes an open. I mean, this guy just doesn't hide anything.
No.
I had to bring it up because, again, when I read it, even I said, good, somebody's saying something about something like that. We talk about it at lunch. I remember that.
But it's been 2 weeks. I believe those cards have been out there and used for 2 or 3 weeks at this point. I mean, imagine Republican Party members are walking around hanging cards on people's doors saying, please vote for for someone who espouses Nazi ideals.
I can't believe that. I would be. See, I would see. I go to extremes. The reason I pretty much call myself a libertarian because I believe in less government. What I do in my own home is my own fucking business.
Sure.
Period. I live here. I'm not going to do anything. I don't hurt people. You know, this is my. I want to sit here and get drunk. I want to sit here and do whatever I do, and I'm about that. When I things keep going in my mind. I can't believe you're the only Jewish member of the Republican Party in the state of Florida.
Only
Republican
member of the legislature. Yeah, there's 160
Question: Are you a
of us.
practicing?
I am.
Okay. Do you fellowship with Democratic Jews?
When I can.
Okay.
I have found that it is increasingly difficult in our society to be friends with people, who are on the other side.
I wish they could, though.
I don't think it's our fault. I think that unfortunately Democrats have adopted the view. I learned this when I was in college. I learned that so I have a real advantage over the rest. I'm 48 years old, but I have a real advantage in the sense.
I'm younger than that.
Well, thank you. I have a real advantage in the sense that all the crazy stuff that's going on in 2022, I was dealing with in 1992 when I was in college. Harvard was just way ahead of the curve on a lot of this stuff. And what I found was that liberals are the most open-minded, tolerant, understanding, friendly
Here it comes.
people as long as you agree with them. As long as you agree with them. And then when you don't, then diversity of all stripes is welcomed by them, except thought.
Well, Bill Maher, and you can like him or hate him.
He's a traditional liberal.
Absolutely, and he says the same thing. He was banned from going to Berkeley.
But Bill Maher is the sort of liberal that conservatives could be friends with. Bill Maher does not inherently believe that conservatives believe what they believe because they're bad people. The problem that you have on the left is the left believes that if I don't want X, Y, and Z, it's because I have some nefarious motivation. It can't be because I just believe.
But Randy,
right.
Being honest, it's on both sides.
It is.
Come on, you can't sit here and just say it's all Democrats. Because I watch some Republicans.
Right. And that's fair. But you asked me, and I would say it is. Look, I have lost multiple friends, people who I thought were lifelong friends this year, who could not separate. Who could not separate their political views from their personal views. It was not me. It was them who did that. I cannot think of ever walking away from a friend because of their political views. It has happened to me multiple times. And it is because I've never thought, I generally think most people who are left-wing are left-wing because they're just not that smart. I mean, that's what I tell my kids. They ask why liberals behave this way. I said, well, if they were smart, they wouldn't be liberals. And so that's that. I think liberals generally look at people like me and say they must be evil. And so that causes problems. And
when you're saying when you're calling them not smart, I mean, you're going to have people who are listening to this show.
Yeah, and
they're going to be liberals. They're going to be liberals for their own reasons.
Well,
and you're saying that they're not.
I said when they act. Not all, but when they act in a certain way. Again, when they act in a certain way. I'm not speaking of all.
All right.
I'm saying that if they were smart, they wouldn't act that way.
I know. So you're saying things like that causing a divide.
Well, we have a divide.
The divide is there. I understand. But the divide is an opinion. The divide is not personal.
Randy,
what'd you say?
But unfortunately, it's become personal.
Okay. And that's
but here's the problem. And I don't know if we're just lucky. We hang out with a group of friends, and we are very, very influential, very affluent. How would you call it? Our group? How would you call our group? Look at him. How would you call our group? We have a lot of people and all over this county, and we meet a lot, and we have everything: liberals, conservatives, middle of the roads, libertarians, whatever you want to call them. Never do we leave mad at each other, and we debate everything.
Yeah.
I've never left one of our lunches. Have you?
No.
Let me give you an example. So I serve in the Florida House, have for 6 years. And so 6 sessions I've been there. And when we meet on the floor, myself and a couple of my Republican colleagues, we will have a little pool, like a betting pool, of how many times that day we will be called racists, bigots, homophobes.
A question
per day. I don't believe, I cannot recall ever our side referring to the other on the floor of the Florida House in such a similarly pejorative way. But we joke about it. Oh, it was only 6 times today. Think about that. And that is considered acceptable political speech on the left to say that those who you disagree with, and I'm seeing it. I feel like there's a 4-step plan for some of this left-wing crazy stuff.
But do you think, Randy, stop. Do you think that is the Florida House? Because again, I'm on national. I watch a lot of national politics, and I go up to. I've been there, testified in Congress. I did a lot of stuff. I'm the only ex-con ever recognized on the floor of the United States Congress, actually, and the only ex-con was actually an honorary police officer in the country. But so I look at, and when I go up there, and I've spoken to people that, and I've been all over the cat, and I see it on both sides. Totally.
No, there's
and I don't know if it's just Florida. You know, when I told a few people I'm doing your interview, and why? Because I like your physical, and I like you say it like it is. That's one of my PowerPoints, I call it.
That's what I do.
You have a lot of controversy on the gay thing right now. Was that the gay thing with that girl? Was that what she's spewing?
Yes, that's what she was.
Okay, she made no sense. So let me just leave that. I mean, that I don't see you as a hater of people.
I don't hate anybody.
I really don't. Maybe I'm missing it, and I don't see where you're out against the gay people or out against this person.
So the story there is very simple. I learned, I had some constituents call me. So we've had a gay pride parade in Brevard County for who knows how many years. I could care less. Not my thing. Adults want to do what adults want to do. Have at it.
Libertarian.
But I draw the line at kids.
100%.
Well,
100%.
Okay. And I learned about a week before that event was going to happen. I had some people reach out to me and say, wait, I just saw something in the newspaper. They're going to be doing something called Drag Queen Storytime. So I looked up what Drag Queen Storytime was. And Drag Queen Storytime is when adult sexual entertainers, drag queens, perform for children with a target, I believe, of 3 to 11 years old. And the idea of it is to desensitize children to the idea of gender. That, you could be a boy, you could be a girl, you can be anything you want, and to desensitize them to sexual subjects. I'm a Boy Scout leader. Step 2 of grooming is desensitizing children to sexual subjects. So I said, this is not okay. I do not believe in drag queen storytime. It's a relatively new phenomenon. It was invented in 2015 with the stated purpose to desensitize children to these deviant.
But don't you think they do it? Now, I don't know. I don't think they should do it to people who don't want to do it, period. Sure. Again, if you're in your house and the guy's a drag queen and he wants to fucking do it story time to his kid.
But this wasn't in their house.
So what I'm asking is, they were publicizing wanting kids from the neighborhood to come to this?
So what they did, again, one of the steps in grooming is to invite a child, come into my house and pet my dog. And then something bad happens. They were advertising that they were going to have a gay pride parade. People show up at the gay pride parade, and then they have child-focused activities. So when I looked into this event, I found that they had not disclosed to their sponsors what they were doing, and they had lied to the city about what they were doing. So when you apply for a permit, this was not a private event. This was an event in downtown Melbourne. So if you were walking to Meg O'Malley's, you would walk by this. Downtown was open. And what I learned is when you apply for a permit in the city of Melbourne, you have to say in your permit application what entertainment you're going to have, what time, what location, and who the entertainers are. So I looked for that information, and it didn't exist. The organizers refused to share. They said, we're having an adult-focused event. They left out any mention of children.
I'm a big...
so I thought the event should be canceled.
I'm a very big child advocate because I was abused at 11.
And they're not.
And people know that. So anything to do with kids, I go overboard to protect.
That's right. Me too.
But I also believe what that person, listen, unless they're fucking doing something to the kid, that's wrong. I mean, you know what I meant.
The rules are different when you're an adult than when you're a child. By the way, you understand this. There's a reason you're treated differently for a crime when you're 16 than when you're 26. So I believe this stuff should be kept away from children. And unfortunately, some people conflated my opposition to drag queen story time. Somehow, if you don't believe that adult sexual entertainers should perform for 6-year-olds, you hate gay people. That's not true. But
I don't see you as a hate person.
I'm not. And I think it is unfortunate Because I think it does real damage to the cause of gay rights. I think gay people are generally just like you and me. They just like something different.
Totally.
But I
don't think they want to be, or anybody wants to be.
But if you say to be gay, you have to want drag queens to perform to children, which, by the way, is a deviant act. Then that does not speak well of gay people in general. Why would you want to associate yourself with this? I don't understand it. And by the way, there is a huge backlash to this. There's an organization called Gays Against Groomers that are saying, we're gay, leave the kids alone.
I'm one of those advocates.
That
with the
organization's big around here.
Leave the kids alone.
I'm one of those guys with the schools when they don't want to. Listen, let the parents take care of that. It shouldn't be in schools. When they wanted to teach kids or do something with kids with gays. The young kids.
You're talking about the don't say gay?
Some crap. I was on the governor's side in this because let that be a family issue.
That's right.
In my mind.
Leave the kids alone.
Gay or straight, I'm not talking to my kids about sex when they're 5, 6, 7, 8.
Well, exactly.
Do you think a teacher should?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
No. I mean, I wouldn't even. Larry's whole thing is what you do at home is your thing. Right, I'm saying even at home,
but with boundaries. You don't get to beat your kids senseless.
No, of course. Those go without saying.
Exactly,
even here,
exactly. There are boundaries, and so that is what that controversy is about. And what's fascinating about the whole thing, I'm not only a straight shooter, I'm not afraid of words. And what I have found that many of these woke leftists, they employ a 4-part strategy.
Oh, I was waiting for you to go back to that.
Part one is to deny it exists. We're not doing surgeries on children where we're cutting off 13-year-old girls' breasts. We're not having drag queen story time because we didn't put it in our permit. Then when you get caught, say, well, it's not happening, but if it was happening...
That's part two?
Part two is, if it was happening, it would be good. Well, I know we didn't say we were doing drag queen story time, but if it was happening, it's a good thing. Part 3 is to say, and if you challenge us, you're a name. You're a racist. You're a homophobe. You're a bigot.
Part 3.
Because with 99% of people, that shuts them down. People are afraid of being called a name. And the difference with me is, they can thank the Democrats in the Florida legislature for this. Because now being called a name no longer bothers me. When you get called a racist 6 times a day, it loses its meaning. So I'm not afraid. And then step 4 is to say, and if you have an opinion, you're being violent. You saw that on that little video I showed you. By pointing out that drag queen story time is wrong, you're killing people. You're murdering people, as this person said.
I didn't get that.
Because they're crazy. And so that is the 4-part plan. And the difference with me, and it's why the left can't stand me so much, is I'm not afraid. By the way, neither is Governor DeSantis, neither is President Trump. We're not afraid. We will lean into this stuff. We take the name calling by these lunatics as a badge of honor. It doesn't work. It's worked for them for decades. It's worked for them I saw it 30 years ago when I was in college. It's worked for them for decades. That is the playbook. It's not happening. If it is happening, it's good. If you criticize it, you're a bigot. And if you criticize it, you're killing people. No. It's time to stop, and people need to stand up and push back on this crazy.
On that, listen, I don't know. I think words, and I think people use words all in the wrong way. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. I look at a person's record. When now, and I am a total middle of the road guy. Totally. I mean, I used to be a young Republican, and they screwed up. They didn't have any kind of things. Became a Democrat. They're crazy. You're farting and fucking cows. I'm not going to go that far. And now more libertarian, and I look at the record of the person I want to support. Hear me out. I support Governor DeSantis because people go, but liberals go, oh, he did this. I said, first of all, let's get something straight with any politician. You're not going to like everything they say. No. I don't care what is. Or friends, anybody. But do you like their core, and do you like what they do, and do you like what they stand for? Second, when I look at Governor DeSantis, people on the left or liberals say, oh, he's no good. I said, wait a minute. Gave teachers raises. Protect the Everglades. Stop offload Joe. What is that not in you, what you want? What you want as a person. Do you want that? Yeah. Well, then he's doing stuff that you want and you're going to support. Oh, but this issue. Listen, we can go on and on about the abortion issues and stuff. I believe Doc is here. We have a doctor here. Do you believe in the abortion issue? I believe it's a woman's right to choose. That's me and the thing. I'm not a religious person. I mean, I've seen it. I'm spiritual, if you want to call it that. But I look at it as, hey, it's not me. It's not me having that baby. And it's, I have my qualms when the Republicans don't want abortion. And I don't mean want abortion. Nobody should ever use abortion for the wrong, for a birth control. Let's put it that way.
There are people who do.
I know there are. And they're dead fucking wrong, period. But how does...
Let me ask you a question.
But I went on this.
Why are they dead wrong? Why are they dead wrong?
To use it as birth control?
Yeah.
If you're using something that is a medical procedure, I know most people say that it's the life thing and stuff. I don't know when life comes. I'm not God. I don't know exactly. I mean, you'll have, listen, I have a doctor here who could probably give us a better answer on that. I mean, my view, how can you use a medical procedure for whatever costs and everything else as a birth control? And who's paying for that now?
Well, that's an interesting. Most people, when you ask, why do you not think abortion should be used as birth control? When you peel back the onion, deep down they're like, because you're killing something.
Right. No, see, okay. I didn't say that.
And so if you didn't, but most people do. And so if you start from that, if you say, okay, you're killing something, then how do we deal with that? Look, abortion's a difficult issue because I talked about this on the floor when we did our abortion bill, because it's a fundamental trade-off between two people's rights. It's the trade-off between a woman's right to do what she wants with her body and a baby's right to live. And so someone loses their rights in this debate. And I often say, man, I prefer not to talk about it because the one person in this equation whose rights are not affected are mine. Women's rights and babies' rights. But someone has to stand up for the babies. And the fact of the matter is we passed a 15-week abortion ban in the state of Florida because you should read. I will tell you, I had a colleague who didn't know how to vote. He was torn on the 15-week ban. I said, I'm not going to tell you how to vote, but I am going to give you this article that talks about how abortions are done after 15 weeks. And I'm not going to describe it here. People can find it. But when he read the article about how abortion, this is not in dispute. This isn't some crazy stuff. This is like medical, how you do an abortion of a baby after 15 weeks. He read it and he goes, I'm good. I'm voting. I cannot be a part of this.
Doc, can you chime in on it?
No, he's doing a great job.
Yeah. And so that was the thing. And so I think that look, for me, I believe that they're babies, and that's what drives my view.
How do you believe in, and we're going to get off this topic.
Sure.
After this, how do you, I can't imagine a person being raped, a woman, and them telling them they have to have that baby, and that baby is that person. I just can't even fathom that.
Sure. Well, they don't in Florida. They've got 4 months to. We have 15 weeks. They've got in our law right now.
Some people don't know they're pregnant.
For 4 months, no one doesn't know they're pregnant.
There's a whole show that's called "Didn't Know I Was Pregnant." They go to the bathroom for Taco Tuesday when a little too hard come out with a baby. No, I mean it. That's a show on TV with many people that are real stories.
Yeah, but here's the deal. I mean, if you're raped, God forbid, and I hope that person rots in hell. If you're raped, you know that there's the possibility of being pregnant. And
get checked.
And so people should, I mean,
makes sense.
I mean, and so people should be checking.
Sure.
And in the state of Florida, they have 4 months to figure out what to do. But it's not a immaculate conception. I mean, they were, and so it's a horrible thing. And look, if it were up to me, rapists would get the death penalty because I think it's a horrible.
Agreed.
I also often talk about rape. Rape is such a crazy crime because I saw it in prison, and I heard it, and it touches me because I couldn't even get an erection to rape somebody. That's not me. Rape is a violence. I try to tell that on the show. Rape is about violence. Rape is about control. Rape is not about sex. I couldn't get a hard on to get freaking rape someone because I'm not a rapist. You got to want the excitement. On that note, one more on that. If they have to have the baby, shouldn't there be something in there for? Planned Parenthood is the wrong word because it's some things are good, some are bad, obviously, and everything, and that's most things. We need to fund some of that in some way. Otherwise, I'm paying for it anyway, Randy. Who gets stuck with the kid who's not wanted, the girl's fucked up. I'm not, I hate to really go deep there. And now the kid becomes, not only the kid is having a rough life.
Sure.
And then he becomes a criminal and he's hurting people. And, you know, it is more, there's more of it than just the baby.
Sure. So one of the interesting things about this is one thing that's changed in our society over the last 40 years is that there are more parents. It is very, very difficult to find and adopt a baby. There are no shortage of parents who want to adopt babies. None. Because a lot of people are getting married later and then they're trying to have babies later and then they realize they can't, you know, because they've got one issue or another. There is a huge surplus of demand for babies than there are babies. There's no shortage. So that doesn't get to your underlying question, but the point is anyone who has a baby that doesn't want that baby, there are people who do. And in Florida, we're very focused on trying to help those people get them. But the idea of you have a baby and nobody wants it, that's just not the case here in Florida.
What? Okay, we're going to get away from that subject, if you don't mind. Here's a subject that's dear to my heart, and somebody said this, that you're against it. You're against prison reform. I didn't read where I saw anything where you're against it. Is it? I mean, where do you land on help? Because we know, and I can go into numbers. Forget it. I do this with the federal government. The numbers of cost of incarceration, all that kind of, and private prisons, where it's driving me crazy. Private prisons. How do you put? You're a businessman. I'm a businessman. There's a bottom line.
Sure.
Care what you say. You're a CEO. You're a CEO. We look at bottom lines.
Yep.
I don't care how you want to cut that. If you have a private prison and things are not going well, what do you do?
I don't know why someone would say I was against prison reform. To be perfectly honest, it's not an issue I've worked on very much. I also wouldn't expect someone to tell you I was a big advocate for prison reform. I wouldn't expect to hear it either way. There's lots of things we work on in the legislature. This is not one that I have spent a whole lot of time on. So I wouldn't describe myself as an advocate or an opponent.
So you're in right.
Yeah,
but I'm going to make you. I'm going to try to make you an advocate.
But what I would say is this. I think we need to think about what we're doing. Look, they've had a lot of prison reform in New York and California. How's that working out? So, I mean, I think...
But that's not really where... You know, Texas is the best prison reform state now. I'll talk about that.
I will... But I mean, I think that, look, I think we should be thinking about things. There are certain people who should go to prison. They should stay there forever.
100% agree.
There are certain people that are not, and so I will be honest. I am not a big enough expert on prison reform to get into the details of it. The one thing I will tell you though is I can't speak about private prisons outside of Florida. I can't speak of them outside of in federal prisons or other states. But here in Florida, I do know that the private prisons operate for less money, and they generate better results in terms of recidivism and those kinds of things than the non-private prisons. And the other issue is that we have if our entire prison system was private, then you would be right. Well, they make more money if there's more people in prison. But when it's a small percentage of the total, you can cut the number of prisoners and not affect the private prison's bottom line. So that's not what's driving things here in Florida. But in terms of the details of prison reform, it's not one of those issues that I have sort of woken up. I've spent a lot of time on education. I've spent a lot of time on economic development. I've obviously spent a lot of time on the environment and those kinds of things. Prison reform's just not, and I have colleagues who are very passionate about it, and I leave it to them. But it's not my thing.
I got you, and obviously as my representative, I'm
sure.
Asking about that because I just did a video on one, and FDLE did a report on an abuse. I did a video, and some of it gets so disturbing that you say these are human beings. Listen, I'm with you. I was in Atlanta, United States Penitentiary, which is done in the federal system. They just called it the worst prison. It was actually a threat to the southeast of the United States, not even Georgia, not Atlanta, not Georgia, to the southeast United States. I was there. We had 2,000 inmates, 880 had life. 200 fight their case legally, 400 fall into the fucking life of prison, and 200 are psychopaths, literal psychopaths. I see them, and I tell people every day, I'm not one of these people who come out here and say, everybody get... No, these people don't ever belong moving next to me, you, or him, or anybody, because they're psychopaths. They don't belong. I don't know. There's a whole different levels. But when I do my stuff, and I do a lot on prisons and jails, and I look at other countries and how they act, even size, and we do comparisons. There's so many studies I have. we have to do more because the voice, and let me give you one number you might understand. You know, they did a studies that each prisoner, Larry, whoever's in prison, equates to 4 votes. What I mean by that is Larry has extended family. Mm-hmm. If Randy is very against prisons and stuff, you're going to have 20 people say, why don't he want this or this? So that's, and then they have illegal aliens who have nobody and people have nobody, don't vote. So, but they equated it to 4. And that happened, I think it was about a 10-year ago study. And that's why you don't see a lot of politicians coming out, oh, we need to build more prisons or stuff. Because, hey, listen, with 2.3 million people incarcerated in the United States, that's 8 million, that's 9 million votes.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, one way to, most people and politicians think inmates are Democrat. And I think they missed the boat. I'm getting it. I'm thinking, I think they missed the boat. Because I know from Tellini and people, and there's a lot more that are more level-headed. They read more. They're very intelligent. They made their mistakes. They drug dealers. I'm not going to go into what people did and do. But I think they have to, those people, the politicians have to look at, one, humanity. How, you know, and you know this, how a country is rated is how it treats its elderly, its infirm, and its incarcerated. That's, you know, and I look at other countries, I think we need to do better, whether it's state-wise, federal-wise, and I don't know what the change is going to be and who's going to bring it up. That's just, you gave me your answer, so you're not into it.
We probably do. And again, I generally don't work on the judiciary-related issues. You can't be an expert on everything. But I would say this, I think what I believe is that people need to understand that when you put someone in prison, you punish that person. But you actually continue to punish society because society has to pay for that person to be in prison. And if it costs $30,000 or $40,000 a year,
28 last count.
All right, let's say $30,000 to round up. That's $30,000 you can't spend cleaning up the Indian River Lagoon. That's $30,000 you can't spend paying a teacher more. That's $30,000 you can't spend on a road. So we have to understand that putting someone in prison may be the right answer for that individual, but it still continues to punish society. Now, that trade-off may be worth it for a murderer, for a rapist. I mean, you know, sign me up for a child abuser. But, you know, for other crimes, and again, I'm not an expert on this, it may not be worth the punishment to society. There may be ways to punish that person in ways that don't punish society. You know, you've got to pay money for the rest of your life or whatever. You got to do, you know, volunteer service, certain things. So I just think that the system needs to be aligned with the objectives that we have. And I think sometimes we do things just because we've always done them. Well, it's always happened this way. Well, that doesn't mean it's right. And at least in my work, I've re-engineered how K-12 education works, how higher education works. And this is obviously something we need to take a look at as well. I'm sorry I'm not more educated on it, but whoever told you I'm not an anti or a pro. It's just I've trusted my colleagues who care about the issue to work on it.
And you gave a great answer. I mean, he really did. I mean, I don't even consider that a political answer. That was a very good answer. We are punishing, and that's what Jeff used to tell me, Cockcamp, who was, and he got the youth, and it was a lot of incarceration we talked about. And I got into that because I seen the abuses. I seen people who are good people that didn't belong. Things happen to them, and then they are scarred. And then again, you talk about punishment into society, then they get out, and it's an ongoing punishment to society. So it's not just the money. Right. It's not just the money.
While you're on this topic, very important topic we brought up last time, restoration of certain rights.
There you go. You know, there's something with the restoration rights right now. Mm-hmm. They did give it, but now they're talking about full sentencing. And here's my issue with it. And it's called a debtor's prison. You can't be put in debtor's prison. I mean, if you can't afford something because it's legit. I'm not talking about people beat the system and all the shit they do. I'm talking about where it's that you can't go to prison. That's called debtor's prison. Now, obviously, you find it fraud and everything else. That's a whole different thing. I'm a believer he goes one step forward. He believes people should have their voting rights, period, jail or not. I'm not. Even me as an ex-con is not that way. But I believe once you do your time, I should have the right, whether I have $1 million fines or this or whatever it is, I should have the right to vote. Because in my eyes, that's being taxed without representation.
So let me push back on you. So
yeah, please.
You believe in a world in which there should, in general, be less incarceration and more alternative methods to punish people if they've done something
Absolutely.
bad. Okay. So the primary way you would probably punish people in lieu of incarceration is penalties, is fines, money.
No, see, because
What
I
else
think.
would you mean?
Well, there's so. Well, you said it earlier. Not only community service, there's a lot of education. What you do, money makes you want to get more money or hide it, Randy. You know, I know people who have such fines. They say, fuck it, I can't do it.
But
why work on the books?
Yeah, well, the issue we have is the constitutional amendment that was passed for restoration of rights said you have to fulfill all the terms of your sentence. And the people who ran that amendment,
I think
they were asked, does that include paying your fines and fees? And they said, yes.
I did not know that.
They did.
Okay,
they did. They were asked by these things have to go before the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, does it include, and by the way, in their materials, when they were trying to get the thing passed, they said, you will have to pay your fines and fees. And then magically, as soon as it passed, they said, move the goalposts. I don't play that game.
I didn't know that.
And so they did something dishonest. They passed one thing and then they said they wanted to do something else. And when you do that with me, you lose a lot of credibility. And so if they believe that people should be able to vote, even if they're in prison, or they shouldn't have to pay the pecuniary part of their
should have been in the bill, is what you said.
Should have been in the amendment, or they can go do it again. And the interesting question is, why was it not? I suspect the reason it was not is because they didn't think it could pass if it wasn't. Because if it could pass, why not say that?
Sure.
But you don't get to pass. You don't get to do a constitutional amendment to do one thing and say, well, we really want another. That's not how the process works.
Great answer, and I respect it. I did not know that. That was a good answer. I'm about a couple more questions, just a couple more.
Yeah, sure.
Why isn't Florida a gambling positive state? Why don't we have gambling in the state of Florida?
Well, we do have gambling in the state of
No, I don't mean Indians.
Well, that is gambling.
I get it.
And that is the reason. That is the reason. The fundamental reason we don't have gambling, and this predates my time in the legislature, is Florida was a very anti-gambling state. The Indians had certain rights to do gambling anyway. And the state, long before me, negotiated. The Indians said, we will pay you a bunch of money in taxes effectively to have Las Vegas style slot machines. And in return, we want exclusivity. And the state gave it to them. And that is the reason.
Can't that be readdressed, though?
Eventually, these agreements only last for so long. And sure, it could be renegotiated and that sort of thing. And frankly, it was to some degree in the compact that we passed. But the bottom line is a bad deal was struck with the Indians. Not me. This is 10 years probably before I got into the legislature. A bad deal was struck where the government chose to give the Indians exclusivity. The end. And that's it.
There's a little bit more to that story, being a lot older and being involved in...
Yeah, I tried to give the quick version.
And being in Miami politics back in the 70s. What happened when gambling first issue arose in South Florida, right? The issue was, and as well you know, what do you do with the seniors that are sitting on those front porches in those old hotels, right, that they'd have to be displaced? And there was no answer for the displacement of these people.
Oh, you mean by building casinos, companies come in?
There was no answer.
Like that.
There was just no answer.
Yeah.
And then you put on top of that, right, all the promises that were made in Atlantic City that were going to create jobs and help these people out in Atlantic City, which was a poverty-stricken area.
Messed that place up.
That never came to fruition.
No, it did not.
So, we were faced in Miami where the populace, the demographics have changed significantly in this state over the past 40, 50 years, right? We were faced in Miami. What are we going to do with these senior citizens who are sitting on the front of these old hotels in their wheelchairs? Is the government going to fund them? Is the state or the casinos going to fund them? And nobody came up. I said,
do you think that's a dead issue now? Like, in other words, we have come to the point listen, we have gambling. There's lottery and there's this, and you can go on the dog tracks, and they have machines and they have poker. It kind of like gets you a little bit when you look at other states that are making a lot of revenue and stuff of that nature. And I go, wait a minute. I mean, why aren't we making the revenue?
And the
you're in a gambling consultant.
We have another
Well.
entity in this state. I'm sure Representative Fine doesn't play it down because she's been involved in this issue. We have another entity in the state that is very influential, all right, in keeping this state a tourist destination, not for gambling. And they're right here in Orlando, right? Very, very influential.
Disney was very
Against
anti-gambling. And they got an amendment passed to make it harder to do. But the bottom line, the simplest answer is, years ago, the state gave the Seminole Nation, and that's what they are. They're they're their own country.
They're a sovereign nation. Right?
They fundamentally gave them an exclusive, and there are some exceptions to that. But in general, we cannot have a robust commercial casino market in Florida because we gave that right to the Seminoles. I would not have done that. There's probably a lot of regret for having done that, but a deal's a deal, and it was made, and it is what it is. And the other issue was, a couple of years ago, the Seminoles, working with Disney, got an amendment passed that said, if we wanted a casino in Brevard County, the entire state would have to vote to allow us to do that. So in order to the legislature does not have the power to expand gambling. This amendment took that power away from the legislature. The only people who have the power to expand gambling in the state of Florida are the voters, and it's in a statewide ballot by a ballot initiative that has to be put on.
So somebody has to put it on to begin with. It's like Supreme Court often asks for cases. They make a decision. They want to make a different one. They have to get a case in front of them.
So, for example, our deal with the Seminoles, as we've renegotiated it, would allow a casino to exist in Jacksonville, because Jacksonville is far away from the 6 Seminole casinos. There's a mileage thing. It's far enough away you could put one in Jacksonville. And so they tried to get signatures to put on the ballot to allow a casino in Jacksonville, and they couldn't get enough. And so it didn't go on the ballot. But the only way a casino can be built in the state of Florida is for the voters to put it on the ballot and then vote for it. That's not up to me. If it were up to me, I would do it very differently, because I think the way in which we've done it does not maximize the economic value for the state of Florida. But I have to play by the rules the way they are. I always say Republicans live in the world the way they wish it, the way it is. Democrats live in the world the way they wish it was. This is it, and I can't do anything about it. So it is what it is. It's a mistake, but the deal was made, and the deal's a deal.
To me, you're right, and the mistake was revenue. Obviously, there'd be a lot more revenue coming into the state. Because and last topic I want to touch before I just touch with these guys quickly to end it, the pot. I'm a believer in, obviously, not only medical marijuana, pot. I mean, I think it says nothing. It's a grown. I mean, where's your stance on it?
I'm not a fan, and I don't mind sharing that. Right. I did vote for our medical marijuana bills because the voters passed them. And I don't believe I have a choice to follow the law. The law is the law. And so I did vote for those bills. I do not support recreational marijuana.
Even with Colorado showing improving in money.
Colorado, there is all kinds of data that has shown massive societal negative impacts from it. So yeah, they get a little bit more money. But there is an enormous amount of data about its effect on children, its effect on homelessness,
marijuana's effect on homelessness.
No, Randy, data. I can make data do a lot of things.
I don't.
That's okay. This is what we're doing.
That's my personal view.
Yeah.
Now if the voters pass it, it's not up to me. I have an obligation to follow the law.
Glad we didn't bring my medical marijuana out today.
I don't disagree with the way you're saying it, because if it's law, it's law, and I'm with everybody, and I'm entitled to my own opinion.
Yeah, I would never vote for a state law to make marijuana a recreational product. I just wouldn't do it. But if the voters do it, it's out of my hands. I have to follow the law.
I'm one of these guys that believe all drugs. I think it's a person's choice. Now, you commit a crime for it. You do something illegal, be held accountable.
Let's talk about that. So let's talk about that. I understand where you're coming from. It's the libertarian approach. Let adults do what they want, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't necessarily disagree with that approach. The problem is, what I find is most people are what I call good times libertarians. I'm not saying you. And I'll show you the example. I don't want to wear a helmet when I ride my motorcycle. Okay? But if I crash
You still got to pay me.
and my head gets split open and I don't have insurance, you better take me to the hospital and take care of me. People want all the fun with none of the responsibility.
I don't buy that.
I don't mind if people make bad decisions, but they have to live with the consequences of them. And so the problem we have is people say, I should be able to do anything I want in my house, in my private world, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, great. But then don't come complaining to me when you have a bad outcome. And the problem is the overwhelming majority of libertarians are not libertarians. A libertarian believes you live with the consequences of the decisions that you make.
Absolutely.
And they don't. I'm not saying you, I don't know, but that is my issue. And look, if you want to use those drugs, it has bad consequences for people.
Obviously, we're old enough to know that.
Yeah, so
know.
eat it. I'm saying, so these people need to just accept it and not put the burden of their bad decisions on society. And that's my view.
And that is, everybody has their view. Here's, again, when you say a pot, like I never, when I went to prison, and to this day, I was actually with a couple of people the other day, and they said, what I remember, Larry, you never, ever bitched once. They'd always, because it was my fault. I had to accept responsibility. People used to visit me. Joe used to say it all the time. Never used to go visit me and say, everybody knew you fucked up.
So you may be a real libertarian then.
I think down deep, I truly am a
But
libertarian.
most of them aren't.
And I tried both sides. So I see where I didn't like both sides. And I'm at that point. My problem with the Libertarian Party is I don't think they're ever going to get hold enough to do anything to make enough people in there enough. I honestly believe most people are libertarians. You don't. I do. Because I think a lot of people are fiscally responsible, socially liberal. I could give a fuck what.
But that's just one part of libertarian.
Yeah. No. I agree with that.
I think there's almost no libertarians. I think the vast majority of people in this country are good times libertarians. I want all the fun with none of the responsibility. I want to be able to make whatever decision I want,
but not have help.
But not have the consequences.
I want to
totally
use
opposite.
social services whenever.
But you know me, I'm totally opposite with that.
You're
responsibility, I am about. And whether it's crime, whether it's driving, I even said you could pass a law if if you don't want to wear a helmet and you have an accident, you can't have insurance. If the insurance companies want to say if you have an accident and you don't have a helmet, we're not covering you.
But then
that's their right.
But then you're an actual libertarian, and the problem is very few libertarians share your view, and that's the problem. They want the bailout. They want all the fun of freedom, but when a bad outcome happens, they want society to bail them out.
And I don't. And maybe I'm old enough now
so,
to.
The vast majority, what I've learned is that people don't have the stomach for it. Okay. And that they don't have the stomach to make people absorb the consequences.
That I have. I do have that. A couple of as our mailman, I told you, we get the mailman coming in. Everything. How you doing, Garfield?
What's up, Garfield?
That's our man. He comes in every day because we do. I have a company.
No worries.
That's our state representative, Randy Fine. That's Garfield, and
how are you? Good to see you,
and he's been here for a while with me.
He's got cigars.
That's not cigars, man. Yeah. That's too small.
Yeah, we got cigars. We got 750 boxes. Who's that?
Not me.
Not me.
That must be Garfield.
No.
Oh, buddy.
Is that me?
Larry, come on, man.
Ooh, geez,
this is the real deal, but is
okay, it's 11. Any question?
Just mute it.
Yeah, I want to say.
Question for Randy, and then you. And that's it. Thank you.
I don't really have a question. I have a comment because it is an election season that we live in.
Thanks, Gar.
I hope people listening closely today, because I want them to understand that whatever issues we're talking about, over a 30 or 40 year period, issues change. All right. I never ever vote for a person on a specific issue. I vote on one's character, and I think the Representative Fine has shown that he's a man of incredible moral character, right, and it puts a lot of thought, right, in the resolutions that he comes up with. So let's not worry about issues. Vote on one's character. That's important.
Thank you.
That is a true statement.
I'd take the other side of that.
You
I
want
think
issues.
issues are pressing. Issues are a thing. I don't want my kids.
You're young, yeah.
My wife's gonna kill me for saying this, but it's the truth. I don't want my kids going to
In the Atlantic.
drag shows. No, I mean that.
Or in the
I'm
Atlantic.
just giving you examples. That's an issue for me. That's important. If that's something that you stand for, but you're not anti-gay, I'm with you. You know what I mean?
Because you're not anti-gay at all.
Absolutely not. But my point is, I kind of see your point when you put it in certain words. An issue is an issue, and I would agree with it. Your stance on anti-Semitism, I'm with it. You know, this might not be a pressing matter as far as the country is concerned or the state of Florida is concerned, but it's a pressing matter to me. It's a pressing matter right here.
It's
in
more
Brevard
than,
County.
and it's happening more than people know, I think.
I mean, the guys call it.
We know that. You don't have to rehash
I think you misunderstood what I said. All right, issues are important. All right, but what's important more is the elected official's character. All right, on specific issues, because that issue of pornography or whatever it's going to be 10 years from now is a non-entity. As gay situation has changed over the past 25 years. All right, that's all has changed. All
From
right?
the military to whatnot, yeah.
But one of sound character, all right, they're going to stay with the electorate, all right, and follow their constituencies, and that's important.
Sure,
Respond
I agree
to
with
the
that.
I agree with that.
Well, I'd like to think I have good character and
Yeah, there you go. You're doing
and
it both.
I'm generally right on the issue.
Well, I'll do my last, and then you can obviously close with it. Listen, like I said, you're never going to agree with everybody on every issue. That's what I think Frank is really saying. And you have to know who the person is. And I'm glad we got to know you a lot better. Sure. You do remind me, Pete, who I sit here with, and he gets and he really is, and I love that. And obviously you do that too. You know your shit. I mean, there's no, anybody, I don't care if they like you or hate you, they can't say you don't know your shit or you don't know your topic. And that, I respect that.
By the way, Pete Filiberto heard about the whole. We were talking about it at lunch about your post on Facebook about Indy Atlantic and the mayor and that asshole that's throwing all that shade over there. And he went that night. He had a Republicans meeting where he denounced Mel Chang, himself, right there sitting there. And he, I'm so proud of him for doing that. By the way, because we just talked about it at lunch. He took a stance. He took it back. And you know what? In that case, Frank, you're absolutely right. A person's character will do the right thing over time. So
100%.
Yeah.
And I just look at things differently as far as there's topics that I hope you look forward for me, whether it's a downtown in Bombay, whether it's Palm Bay issues that I don't know how to freaking fix the corruption and whatever. And I'm glad you pointed out because I live here and I do have an interest in a stake in the city and this county. And I'm so glad you break up and don't let one party, because there was a Republican Party that wanted that money and you gave the whole story of it. Good. We need that. You could not like Randy Fine for whatever reason. I get, he did, like he doesn't like prison. You told me, you don't have to go on anymore. You said it. Thank you. I mean, you don't know enough. Maybe you will know. Maybe you'll learn more. Maybe I'll talk to you more. Maybe whatever. And we're done. And I think that is it. What would you like to say before I totally close the show?
I guess what I would say is, look, I'm a pretty straight shooter. I tell people what I think, and if they like it, they vote for me, and if they don't, they don't. I think most people appreciate honesty and forwardness, and I'm not interested in doing the job if people don't want that. So for me, this job puts a great strain on my family, particularly my two young boys, and so I do this for them, and that people ask, why do you take on the hard issues? Why don't you just name roads and things like that and post offices? And I say, because if I'm going to be away from my boys, I'm going to make it worth it. And so that's why I take those issues. And I've won 3 elections. The majority of the folks tend to agree with me. I think I'll win this one as well. And what I'll say is, if you like the work I've done for the last 6 years, you should support me. If you don't, you don't. The last thing I'll say is this: I'm not hard to get a hold of. I mean, the flip side is I don't have a day job. I'm retired. This is what I do. And so I'm in my office most days, and I don't take walk-ins. It's actually not safe for me to do that anymore. But what I do is I let people call and get an appointment. They ask for an appointment, they get one. I meet with anyone once. I may not meet with them twice if they're jerks, but I meet with anybody once. And if people ever want to talk to me about anything, all they got to do is call the office and ask for an appointment.
And you're running for District 33 this time.
Yeah, so we redistrict every 10 years. My district is largely the same. as it was last time, but it's now going to be District 33. The only changes are I'll lose some of my constituents in Southeast Brevard. I don't have Barefoot Bay, Grant Valcaria, and some of the South Beaches anymore. But I picked up more of downtown Melbourne, all of West Melbourne. I had part of it. And I also picked up the town of Melbourne Beach. And so I added a little bit. I lost a little bit, but it's mostly the same. But the district number will now be 33 instead of 53.
And that's what you're running for. And I know, like I said, you do represent Palm Bay.
I do.
So that's why I asked you about it. And also, what's your next plan? I mean, you're getting termed out if you win this one,
That's right.
Correct? Where you go from here?
We'll see. We'll see. There's some interesting opportunities. Senator Mayfield, who is our state senator, she will term out the same time I term out in the House. So that's certainly something that I'll be taking a look at, and we'll see. I mean,
What about bigger?
Well, what's bigger? I mean,
United States Congressman, United States Senator,
well,
you know.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's difficult to. Florida's a big state with like 13 media markets, something crazy. You can't go from being a little old House member to being a U.S. Senator. That just doesn't work. But maybe Congress at some point. I mean, look, Congressman Posey's a great congressman, and I don't have any reason to hope that he leaves anytime soon. He doesn't have term limits, so he can serve for as long as he wants. Maybe when he's done, I'll think about that. But those are the two most likely things: are the state Senate and Congress. And again, I'm not giving you some baloney answer. I'm just answering,
And I just wanted to ask because that's one of the questions I know what we wanted.
No, I think there's a good chance that I'll run for the state Senate. But we'll see what happens after the election. What I'm most excited about is the election being over. And then I get to do the part of the job.
Me too.
I get to do the part of the job that I like, which is advancing legislation for the good of the people of Florida. And because it is my final 2 years, typically as you get more senior, you get more influence in the process. This will be the 2 years I will have the most influence. And what I say to folks is, if you like how much I've been able to get done my first 6 years, wait for the last 2. I get more done than just about anybody. I've gotten 30 bills passed in 6 years. A lot of legislators get none. And so I'm good at the job. It's in part because I attack the job the same way I attacked my business. I'm aggressive. I'm straight with people, and I want to win. And so I'm going to do it that way. And I don't worry about. I tell people all the time, I'm a terrible politician. I was a great businessman, and I'm a good legislator. People want a politician, they should vote for somebody else. I will never be a good politician. I don't aspire to be a good politician, because if I got to lie, I don't want the job. I'm just going to continue to call it like I see it.
That's that's a rare word from a politician, and I'm glad you did it. Thank you very much for having me. I hope you had come back on. And
anytime, just let me know. You're a 7-minute drive from my office.
I kind of figured
So
that.
let me know.
I know down the road. Thanks, Benz. Anything else?
Nothing.
Frank, thanks for stopping in.
Thank you.
Randy, thanks again. We really had a good time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. You heard from Randy Fine. He's running for District 33 right here in Brevard County. So you can check him out on the ballot there. Great questions. Let the comments keep coming. Have a great day, everybody. Please make good choices.